Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. This is the Cam and Chris podcast. I am Cam, joined by my father, and today I kind of wanted to talk about something that I've been thinking about lately, which is the state of journalism in 2019. Dad, what do you think about the state of journalism in 2019?
That...
Don't feel like you have to walk on eggshells.
Well, let me... that is a very good question. I think that, number one, before I say what the state is, in my opinion, let me say that the thing that has kept America free in our history as a country is journalism itself. I think that journalism is as important as the country itself because American journalism is free, and a free press is what has kept the American government honest and forced it to be honest.
Is it free now?
That is the problem. Through the companies, I feel, that have purchased the major press sources, which in today's world I would say the major press sources are television and the newspapers. And
I would say both. That's completely wrong. I'd say it's the internet.
Well,
100%.
And yes, well,
maybe 60 years ago those were the biggest ones, but not anymore.
Well, okay.
Internet.
But I wholeheartedly agree with the internet being a major factor, and if anything, the freedom of the internet has forced the other two sources to not be as biased as they could otherwise be. They're still heavily biased,
right?
But they're almost forced to stay a little bit honest because of the internet. So,
well, you're right, because they see the comments and they see people saying this is stupid, this article is horrible. I think you're right in that CNN, Fox News, whoever, these big corporations, they put pressure on the smaller entities to put a certain spin on it, to put a certain skew on it. Nobody just reports the news anymore. They report their take on the news, and everything's an opinion piece, and it might be self-deprecating, but even this, podcasts. Everyone's got a podcast now. Everyone's got a thing they want to say, and that contributes to news not being news anymore. Nothing is news anymore. Everything's an opinion now. Nothing is A, B, or C. It's it's the entire alphabet.
Yeah.
So you don't get just this happened, and that's it. You get this happened, and it happened because these people are bad, or this person's good, or and if you don't think that, then you're stupid, or if you think that, then you're smart, and it's always got a spin on it.
Yeah. The New York Times, which used to be
a reputable news source.
Yes, and they used to, and I believe that they used to the headline banner on the front page of the New York Times, up at the top where it said the date and that it's the New York Times, like right under New York Times, it used to say all the news that's fit to print, or something to that context,
Right.
And they were the big dog on the street. Well, in the 2016 election of Donald Trump, they apologized the following day, following the election. They apologized and said, we got caught up in all the anti-Trump insanity, and we apologize. They apologized.
Wow.
And they said, we want to try to go back to how it used to be of printing the news. And, but
That's impossible.
But well, they also said, but we need people to buy our newspaper.
Yeah.
And so, we apologize. So please buy our newspaper because we're going to go back to just printing the news instead of
Trump derangement syndrome.
Yeah.
24/7.
Yeah. Of
the Trump News Network.
Yeah. So they said that. Now, which I thought was a very honest way of conducting business, But the problem with that was that's not where they're at today.
Yeah.
They said that the day following the election.
They dove off the deep end, and then they brought some scuba gear, and they went back, and they dove even further.
And they're back in now. I just read an article about a week ago about the New York Times, and I'm trying to remember what the context of the article was, but and it was pertaining to Donald Trump, and something happened about a week ago, and it might have been the Jeffrey Epstein death or something
how he
like that.
Hung himself with air quotes.
Yeah.
When in reality the Clintons assassinated him, but
they.
You really think he killed himself?
Well, let me finish statement one before I start with statement two. But the point, and it was about the New York Times, which is they made, and it was their headline, whatever their headline was that day, which was like a week ago. But whatever their headline was, they received such an outpour of people that were losing their minds as far as the New York Times printing this on their front page, that the New York Times actually, I'm not going to say they retracted it, but they modified their headline. And they then...
Oh, I think I did see that. They didn't want to make Trump sound too good. The headline made Trump sound good, so they had to change it so it didn't make Trump sound good.
Yeah. And so on the same day, they then re-released the headline and reprinted the headline. And it might have been about the gun shootings, the gun killings or something. Like a week ago,
right?
But they then re-released the headline on that day to reflect something that Donald Trump didn't do right, versus him doing something right, and then that made everybody happy, and then they got all the subscribers.
Everybody
back.
Crawled back into their safe hidey hole with their purple hair and their Netflix shows, and they were happy again.
And uncanceled their New York Times subscriptions. So
I think
the fact that a paper would modify its headline based on a outpouring of angst
wasn't it back in like
subscriber?
Wasn't it back in the days when the 50s and 60s when newspapers, everybody and their mom read the newspaper? That was one of your main ways of getting the news. Like a retraction was like that. That was like a big deal. Like you didn't want that to happen. You do proper research, and I don't want to say I don't want to say that journalists used to have like an honorable job, but it had a certain degree of merit to it. You had your sources, like Kolchak. You had your sources, you had your people on the inside, and you got you put effort into it, and you made sure you didn't want to retract a story. You wanted to make sure that what you put there was correct. And nowadays it's so willy-nilly. Yeah. And the two best examples I can think of, first of all, the Jussie Smollett whole fiasco, and second, which is that's comical, man. I could, oh my gosh, we could talk for 50 minutes about just about that. But anyway, so the Jussie Smollett thing, and then the whole the Nick Sandmann, where the kids, the Covington Catholic kids, went to Washington D.C. And that Indian dude was beating the drum in that kid's face. And it's amazing because Nick Sandmann was the kid, and he actually tried to take a lawsuit against the Washington Post. Right. Because the Washington Post, as soon as that video came out, and it's amazing to me because you can't be sure what's in these people's minds, what happened, he said, she said, and everyone sees this video of this kid, right? And this Indian dude, imagine if you're 16 years old, right? And some Indian dude just gets right in your face and is just beating a drum going, hey, And the kid has this look on his face like, what the fuck am I supposed to do now? Like, it looks so awkward. Like, I wouldn't know what to do at 16 years old. I'd just stand there awkwardly like he did with a look like, what should I be doing right now? And I guess he tried to... I got my notes here, by the way. If you can't hear that, we're going old school, baby. So
that's cheating.
That's cheating? That's not cheating. So a federal judge dismissed... This is from Rolling Stone, by the way. A federal judge dismissed Covington Catholic
Which is
High
biased.
School, not at all. Rolling Stone, they're not biased. You remember when Rolling Stone used to be about music? They used to post music stuff, and now they get these liberal crybaby tear posts about this and that.
Rolling Stone's always been biased, liberally biased.
But everything else, they've gone off the deep end.
And actually, if I may segue just for a moment,
okay,
and mention, since we're talking Rolling Stone, we were actually talking about Rolling Stone earlier today, when I thought the low point of the Rolling Stone magazine, being born and raised on rock and roll, I mean, the Rolling Stone is like the Rolling Stone Bible.
Yeah, it's the Bible of rock,
the rock and roll
music,
Bible,
pop culture, everything.
Yeah, and their low point, it was to me the lowest point was that the Boston Marathon bomber. On the cover of Rolling Stone in that Jim Morrison-esque, he looked like he was in a boy band.
Yeah, dude, and they had like a fucking glossy filter to the picture too to make it look like all emotional. Like I was watching a Twin Peaks episode or some shit. Yeah, he looked like that dude on the bike from that show.
Exactly. Yeah. The next step was to come out with a poster that you could hang on your wall of the Boston Bomber.
It's got his name, World Tour, Boston Bomber World Tour 2019. It's got a poster of it.
One stop only. Yeah, Boston.
Kill a bunch of people and get your face a nice flattering picture of you on the front of the world's biggest fucking magazine.
And then and then my statement back, and I had forgotten my statement concerning that glossy photo on the cover of Rolling Stone magazine. And my statement, instead of using that photo, was which one?
The one where he's being caught by the SWAT team or whoever. He's in the back of that boat. He's soaked in his own blood, and he's got his hands up, and there's like 5 red dots on his forehead from sniper rifles. Like, that would have been a great picture.
Yeah, that would have been the photo of the 5, the red dot scopes.
Two of the biggest issues, and I want to get back to the Covington Catholic. Hold on, we'll go we're going to go full circle eventually here, but let's just go off track for a second here. Two of the biggest issues that my generation says that we face, which I think there's a lot more ones, but it's mass shootings and suicide, right? And I think both those issues can be solved mentally. We don't need laws. We don't need marching or protests. We need a change in mental attitude, and those problems can both be solved. And it kind of feeds into what you're saying. These mass shooters used to get their fucking faces posted all over the internet. They're famous. Then they get interviews. Fucking people, like news stations, are trying to interview them. That's one thing, is that you can become famous if you kill a bunch of people, if you do a mass shooting. Mm-hmm. Another thing is going off on suicide, and this might be an unpopular opinion, but if you look, I don't know how much you know about like the modern day take on what suicide is. I think there's a lot more sympathy towards suicide now, meaning when somebody kills themselves, everyone's like, they don't shame them. I think suicide should be a shameful thing, because we live in a world now in America, my generation lives in a world where suicide is not shameful. If suicide is shameful, if you kill yourself and it's shameful, and you know that you're going to be shaming these people, your family and your friends, how bad it's going to hurt them, maybe you wouldn't do that. But now it's almost kind of like, oh, well, they were a sensitive person, and it's a very weak approach to the issue. I think that we don't focus on the brain aspect and the thought process of it. We focus more on the emotional aspect of it, and I think that applies to pretty much all problems that my generation, millennials or Gen Zers or whatever the hell you want to call us. I think that's a lot. That's a big issue to how we approach our problems. Is it's too emotional, or in some cases, it's not enough emotional. We're not actually dissecting our thought process and the way we think about things, if that makes any sense at all. I don't know how it was when you were a kid. Did you have mass shootings and, all that kind of stuff back in the day when you were growing up in the 70s there?
Not really. There were some. Not to the degree that it is today.
Mass shootings or suicides?
I'm thinking mass shootings.
Oh, okay.
But there are more people today, number one. So you could say, well, it was different. Well, there were less people. So
you think that's the only reason that?
Well,
you don't think it's a breakdown in?
I do think it's a breakdown
in like mental strength and will and the family structure and.
A pundit that I do a lot of reading on, his name is Pat Buchanan. And Pat Buchanan used to be a speechwriter for Richard Nixon way back in the 1970s. Pat Buchanan later ran for the presidency. I want to say it was the mid-1980s or something like that, maybe late 1980s. Pat Buchanan is a sharp dude. He's on a PBS show now on the weekend.
Still alive?
He is. He's in his 80s now.
Okay.
I think he just turned 80. But Pat Buchanan is one of these people that when he makes a statement, it's worth reading, it's worth listening to because it's pure.
Right.
And Pat Buchanan basically said that everything that's going on today with America is a result of America turning its back on its Judeo-Christian religious past.
Right. The nuclear family, I think, is what it's called.
Okay.
A man, a wife, and a family.
And
the traditional family structure in my generation.
2 kids and a dog.
Yeah, the traditional family structure in my generation is, it's like destroyed. I know multiple people, and it's sad, and they don't realize the weight of their mindset, but a lot of people now, they have a bunch of animals, like dogs and cats and stuff, and they call them, the phrase is fur babies. And they say, now get this, bear with me on this, this is real, I'm not making this up, I'm not kidding. Okay? They treat dogs and cats, and they love dogs and cats like their children.
Yeah.
And then their logic or their thinking is, we don't need to have kids. We can just have dogs and cats. And they literally, the way they view these animals is like their children. Mm-hmm. And it's pointless. It's like talking to a brick wall. But I try to tell them that you'll never get that same level of satisfaction from these animals that you will as a child. And even the fact that you're comparing a dog to a kid, right? So I was talking with a friend of mine the other day, and he kind of has that mentality that, my dogs are just as much as my family as my sister and brother. And I said, you really think that they're equal? And he's like, yeah, in the family sense, yes. He's like, but if I was, if I had to swerve left or right on the road to hit a dog or to hit a child, I'd hit the dog. And I said, why? Why would you hit the dog? If they're the same, why are you choosing one? Does it matter? If they're both equal, why hit the dog? Why not hit the kid? If it's a newborn baby, technically a full-grown dog would be a little smarter than a newborn baby. So why not hit the baby? And it's like, that's a very, I think, dangerous mentality to have. And that's just one of a million reasons that my generation is kind of, we are, in terms of the traditional American, like you say, Christian roots, that is just, it's getting further and further away from that. And I think that's a very big detriment to our country. We don't value human life. We literally equate animal life to human life.
Yeah.
It's not that we're saying human life is less than animal, but we're calling them equal. People get so emotionally invested in their animals. And I get it, I really like my dog, we have a great dog, for those listening, Demon, and they've seen Demon. They know how cute of a dog he is. He's a great dog. Mm-hmm. We don't beat him or anything. We treat him respectfully and feed him. And it's not like we're abusing animals, but it's an animal.
Yes.
Do you agree? I mean, it's an animal. It's not.
Well, the way that I was raised, and let me apologize for telling this story. Number one, because
God.
some people don't receive it well.
Okay.
But I have to tell it. This is the way I was raised.
Is it about me?
No.
Okay, okay. Okay, then you can tell it.
I can. Well, let me think.
Stop.
Let me scratch. Let me pick this.
Tell your story. Tell your story. As long as it's not about me, I can listen to it all day.
It's actually about my brother Curtis.
Okay.
When we were kids, Kurt was probably, I'm thinking 3 or 4 years old. Mm-hmm. One day we're sitting down. It was supper time. Time to eat supper. Well, that's when the dog was fed. Our dog. We had just gotten a new dog.
And for those, if I can interject, they lived in a nuclear household. Mom, Dad, and you had 2 brothers.
2 brothers.
So 3 rambunctious boys in the 70s?
And a dog, yeah.
And a dog.
So this would have been 1974-ish.
Okay.
And it was Kurt's job, 3 or 4 years old. It was his job to feed the dog. So he went to feed the dog. Well, we had just gotten this puppy. And the dog, Kurt was feeding the dog, and all of a sudden there was some yelling, some barking, some screaming, and all of a sudden Kurt walks into the room after the dog had bit him in the face. And he's bleeding from the face, the cheek or something like that. He's bleeding from the face, and my dad said, "What's wrong with you?" And I can't even remember the name of the dog, but he said the dog he bit me in the face when I was feeding him, and
face.
In the face. We had just, and evidently he had reached down to pet him or something like that, and the dog bit him in the face. So this young puppy. So we had just started eating, and my dad calmly puts his silverware down, says, "I'll be right back," and we proceed to eat, and we're eating. And all of a sudden we hear a boom! And it's like, what the heck is that? and all of a sudden my dad walks back into the room. Well, he had gone and gotten his gun and shot the dog. And and my dad calmly picks up his silverware and says to my mom, "We need a new dog." Well,
yeah.
The boys, the other 2 of us, me and Gig,
holy shit.
we go running from the room, and Dad was right. We needed a new dog.
Yeah.
But that's the way my dad was raised, obviously,
right.
And that's the way I was raised. But
I align with that. I understand that.
Yeah,
and dog fucking bites my 4-year-old kid in the face. Fuck you, man.
Exactly.
You made your last mistake, motherfucker.
You just made your last mistake. But now, some people, that's bad. That's bad. Well, no. I learned a valuable lesson. I learned such a valuable lesson from that moment. And the valuable lesson is every time since then in my life that I have gotten a new dog, when I bring that dog home and his first feeding...
Oh, you stick your hand in?
I walk over and dump the food out, and the puppy runs over and he's wagging his tail and he starts eating. And I put my hand in the food. And then if he growls, I thump him on the head. Not hard, this, that, whatever. Even with the index finger, thump.
Yeah, enough.
I thump him on the head. And then... he starts eating again. And I let him start eating again, and he's going at it, and I put my hand in the food. And if he growls, he gets the treatment again. And we repeat that process until he finally figures out that, wait a minute.
I'm not supposed to do this.
I'm not supposed to do this. And we repeat it on the second feeding, and usually it doesn't even need to be done on the third feeding.
Right.
He's gotten the point, and he understands, and for the rest of his life, there is not an incident pertaining to him eating and who delivered the food,
right,
and who can pet him.
You don't even have to go there.
You don't even need to go there. So it's taken care of, and the end.
The amazing thing to me is that I talked with a man who is he's older than I am, and you could say he's more successful than I am, and that he has a family, he has a house, and he told me one time about how he's training his dog without physical punishment, and he's just verbally scorning him, the dog, to train the dog. And he's always telling us about all these problems that he's having with his dog. The dog won't behave, and then he's telling us about how he's doing. You don't need to physically harm your dog or do anything to your dog to train it, because that's cruel and blah, blah, blah. And this goes back to what I was saying earlier. He won't say this. He would never admit this. But I believe that he thinks, because he thinks that a dog is equal to a human, that you can train a dog in a similar way that you can train a human. But you can't talk to a dog and say, hey, don't do this because blah, blah, blah. And if you do this, blah, blah, blah. Because the dog will, what is the dog going to understand from that? If you just talk to a dog, what are you going to get out of that? Well, a dog will not receive information like a human will.
I agree with that to a certain point. I disagree.
I'm not saying get a chain and fucking whip this dog. No. I'm saying a dog is not a human. Yeah. It won't respond.
But when Demon does dig a hole somewhere where I feel that he shouldn't dig a hole, or when Demon does something that I don't like, which is rare, but there's 2 holes out on the side of the house right now where he dug a hole. And when I walked out the door, and the day that those were fresh holes, and he happened to be laying there, and I commented, "What is this?" Demon's ears went down, and his head slouched down, and he's like, "Oh crap!"
Yeah, well, but that's another thing is your tone.
Exactly.
It's not your words, it's your tone.
It's the tone. And he understands the tone.
Right.
So, and he was, oh, crap. Not necessarily, I wish I wouldn't have dug those holes.
No, I remember you used to get mad at him for digging holes, but then you found out that he was trying to kill those moles in the yard.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah, and it's like, who's the asshole now?
Yeah.
Piece of shit.
Oh, yeah, well, that's the thing, is when I happen to a mole trap kills a mole out in the yard, I pull the mole out, and I actually walk over and let Demon smell it and try to encourage him. Get the mole. Bad mole. Get the mole, Demon.
Yeah.
But in his advanced age, he doesn't quite dig for the moles like he used to.
He's not bloodthirsty anymore.
Well, nah,
he's
bloodthirsty.
He's stacked up enough bodies.
Yeah. He still he still snipes the occasional possum that happens to be crossing the yard at midnight.
Yep.
So, but that's an easier target than that elusive mole out there. So,
you know who else seems to be elusive is these media companies from Scrutiny. As I was talking about earlier, Nick Sandman attempted.
What a nice segue.
He attempted to sue the Washington Post, and it went nowhere. Well, they dismissed the case, but now I guess they're trying to do some kind of follow up. But we know it's not going to go anywhere. Can you imagine? Let me get this out. Hold on. Let me get this out. So, can you imagine if you have this super awkward encounter with this old Indian guy? He smells weird. His breath is probably really bad, and he's banging a drum in your face and chanting. And then all of a sudden, you have every liberal newspaper, which is a majority of newspapers, unfortunately, saying you're a racist, looking at your facial patterns and saying that you have facial structure of an oppressor.
Well, newspapers were saying like the kid needed to be hit in the face.
Yeah,
and he needed violence on him, and it was just
child, a 6-year-old kid.
It was sad. It was so sad. And before you continue on your thing, I remember when that incident happened, and I remember how they vilified those kids in the press.
Yeah.
And then I remember when the truth came out and how these kids had this group, and there was some other group. There was like some African American group. Or something.
The Israelis, the African Israelis. Oh, I was just watching a Jesse Lee Peterson video about this. Actually, he interviewed those guys.
Okay,
Jesse Lee Peterson interviewed those guys.
Yeah, and they were antagonizing these kids also.
Yeah,
So here's these kids,
but they're not racist.
Well, here's these kids that are being accosted by different groups.
Oh yeah,
and which is is very un-American
Yeah.
right there. So, but here's these kids being accosted by these different groups, and then the press is piling on them because of they were wearing their red MAGA hats.
Yeah.
So, but the thing that impressed me about that whole thing is when you read the whole story and you get all the facts, these kids were being accosted by these different groups, and these kids, and it was a Catholic high school, I guess. They were from a Catholic high school in Kentucky. But these kids did not use vulgarity.
No.
These kids did not swing at somebody that's getting in their face. These kids were 100% honorable, and all their actions were 100% honorable. And I was so impressed by these kids and their performance under fire in that incident. I was so impressed.
You got the Hebrew Israelis calling them crackers and all this stuff.
All that stuff. And to me, I my hat's off, and God bless them. They and if anything, I don't know how old they were. 16.
They were in their
16 and
teens.
17, maybe.
Mid-teens.
But I remember when I was a kid at that age, and my actions would have not been so honorable.
Oh no.
So
no.
God bless them and good for them.
Yeah.
And more power to you. So
Nathan Phillips was the name of the Indian man who got into to Nick Sandmann's face. Nathan Phillips, when he got all of a sudden he's got 100 news stations knocking his door down for an interview, right? They interview him, and he always brings up, and then the headlines become that he was a Vietnam vet.
Yeah.
And they say I was a Vietnam vet, blah blah blah, and then all of a sudden all the headlines are a Vietnam vet was verbally assaulted by a racist young Donald Trump kid, but I guess it turns out, and he's not lying, but he's like stretching the truth because he was in the Marines during the Vietnam War, but he never actually stepped foot and went overseas to Vietnam. But the way he words it is so carefully worded. I was a Vietnam vet. You know what I'm trying to say? He knows what he's doing when he says it. He knows the way he words it is to make you think that he went to Vietnam when in reality he was still in the U.S. And I think he was Marine Reserves for 4 years.
I believe that is.
But
correct.
He's doing that intentionally. He's wording it vaguely or not enough to make it seem like he went overseas to give him more merit. And it's ridiculous.
And the phrase there is being a former Marine myself and former Marine Reserve myself. The phrase there that he didn't use correctly is Vietnam era veteran.
Yeah.
And the thing, any person,
it's a big shit show.
Any person that any person that I'm a Vietnam era veteran, it's like
who gives a shit?
So it's like
I'm a war on terror.
Vietnam era veteran. That's better than a Korean era veteran.
Or a world,
that's better than it's like in the Marine Corps.
You must have such a big dick. Wow.
In the Marine Corps, it doesn't matter when you served. It's that you served.
Right.
That's the important thing. I'm a Richard Blumenthal. He's a senator from the state of, I want to say it's Connecticut. But Richard Blumenthal.
I was thinking of Bernthal, or Bergdahl. Bergdahl.
Bo Bergdahl. Oh,
yeah. Now you got me thinking about Bergdahl.
Oh, don't even get me started on that doofus. But God. But Richard Blumenthal is a senator, not a congressman, a senator from the state of Connecticut. Richard Blumenthal, when he was running, he was a Vietnam veteran. Well, then they did a little observation and a little check-in, and the same thing as Nathan Phillips. They don't mention that one of our senators did the same thing as Nathan Phillips, made the same claims. Oh, yeah, I'm a Vietnam veteran. Well, I'm a Marine Vietnam veteran. Well, Richard Blumenthal, the same thing. I think he did 4 years, and he never went anywhere other than maybe the local
reservation.
Yeah, well, the local drill center or whatever. You know? So but I was it was a long time ago, and
I rode in the helicopter when it went down. The helicopter crashed, and I was there.
Yeah, or I seen a picture of it.
Yeah,
I seen a picture of that helicopter.
Who's that
crashing
guy?
Helicopter.
Who's that guy?
That was the Brian Williams
Brian
from
Williams?
NBC. Yeah. Yeah.
I was there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was there, and it was very traumatic.
Oh,
gosh. So but Richard Blumenthal.
That goes, like we were saying, that goes to show the state of journalism.
Yeah. Well, but like I said, with Nathan Phillips, Nathan Phillips claims, former Marine and all this stuff, Vietnam. Well, Richard Blumenthal did the same thing. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, he got elected though. He got elected.
Now he's evil. And every black entertainer in the industry loved Trump before he became president. Oh. Snoop Dogg, all of them, they loved him.
But that's why Donald Trump calls Richard Blumenthal, that senator, who that senator's always running his sock about how bad Donald Trump is. Well, that's why Donald Trump refers to him as I think he's like Hanoi Dick or something like that, kind of a thing. Is based on him making those claims.
Wow.
So people don't.
I didn't know that.
People don't know the backstory on why that guy gets that assault from Donald Trump.
Right.
It's because of that. So and then people don't, with Nathan Phillips here, they don't mention, it's the same as that senator over there that made the same claims. People don't the press doesn't put two and two together.
Right.
When it's inconvenient for them.
Exactly.
If that was a Republican, oh my God, we'll never hear the end of it.
What was incredible? Talking about sensationalism, right? Everything has to be sensational now. I don't know if you heard of this, maybe, but on every Facebook post and Instagram this and YouTube that, there was this guy with CNN, I believe, or it might have been MSNBC. I'm going to sound like an amateur now because I don't know the exact details, but you can look it up. And this guy is from Baltimore, and Trump's been making those claims about the rat-infested city, and who's the
Elijah Cummings.
Elijah Cummings. He's been getting on Elijah Cummings' case, and he's been talking about how it's rat-infested, which it is, and it is a rundown shithole. But that's racist, and he's targeting blacks and all this stuff. There was a news anchor who was reporting this story, right? And he broke down into tears live on air. What a weak, poor, pitiful man to cry on TV like that. Andrew Yang recently did that too. One of the Democrat running mates or whatever. He recently broke down in tears in front of a whole audience.
Really?
I could never do that, man. I got too much pride to fake cry. But anyway, so this news anchor is he's getting all emotional. He's starting to cry a little bit. And he says, Donald Trump said that no human would ever want to live there. And he says, well, Mr. President, I lived there. And he thought he was everyone's like, he delivered such a brave message to the president. It's like, he literally contradicted himself in the same sentence. He said, you said no human being would want to live there. Well, I lived there. As in past tense, live there. I don't live there now. It's like, so you moved out. It's like you literally you tried to make a point and then you went against your point in the same sentence. It blew my mind.
Yeah.
You said no human being would want to live there. Well, I lived there.
And it should have been I lived there.
No, I lived there. He's saying that Donald Trump said no human being would want to live there. So he was right because you don't live there anymore.
Exactly.
You moved out of the hood. As most successful black men do who come from poverty, they move out of the hood. They don't stay in the hood. So many rappers and whoever, they talk about that, how they move out of the hood.
O.J. Simpson.
Yeah, everyone moves out of the hood. Even white people, they move out of the trailer park. Eminem moved out of the trailer park. See? I mean, it's the same shit. It's the same concept. I don't understand it, man. The whole, how do you get a job at one of these companies? Do you just go in and they ask you a bunch of questions or something and they make sure that you say what they want you to say? How do you become a journalist?
Okay.
How do you become a journalist in 2019?
Instead of that, the response I wanted to give you was, there is a CNN anchor, and I believe her name is Allison Camerata.
Okay.
I think that's her name. But, and she used to work at Fox. And somehow, 3, 4, 5 years ago-ish, used to work at Fox. And somehow, I don't know if Fox was downsizing, if she said something wrong, this, that, whatever. But the end of her... I don't want to say she was fired, but, in whatever context, she stopped working for Fox. They let her contract run out, and, you're not... team player, I don't know why, but being in the press, being a news person, you need a job. So she went to work for CNN. Well, CNN has its requirements as far as your viewpoint on how you look at press events,
right?
And she drank the Kool-Aid. And she knows which side of the bread is buttered. So
she's like Anakin Skywalker, switching sides like that. Right?
Yeah,
she was supposed to be the chosen one.
So it's if you can't get on the Fox team, there aren't a lot of other conservative news outlets for you to get a job on. So if you're going to continue that work and you got to cross the line into the other side.
So we're running out of time here, but I thought we'd end on this. What do you believe is the main takeaway from this, from all of this stuff that we've talked about? We've covered a lot. What do you think the main takeaway should be? Where do you think journalism, quote unquote, I use the term loosely now, is it going to turn into, or do you think that people will just kind of stop paying attention to the news? What do you think will happen? Where do you think that will go?
That I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question, and I'll be blunt. I don't know.
Right.
All I can say is that I try to not only listen to Fox, but I try. I try to listen to the other side. I try to turn on CNN. I can only stomach it for so long.
Yeah.
Because when you
Drudge Report is a good website for.
I love the Drudge Report.
Oh, you know about Drudge Report? Okay,
definitely.
And even though NPR, I believe, leans a little to the left, NPR is still pretty good. From what I've seen,
to me, they're a little bit more than a little bit to the left. But,
okay. But I think they're. I mean, it's so many places are so far left. They're fucking communists.
Yeah.
It's like.
But I try to not only and the answer to skewed press. The answer is to get your information from as many sources as possible,
right?
Including BBC. And there are TV stations that I think one is like BBC Overseas or something like that.
Yeah,
and so that's the thing though and also newspapers.
Yeah.
I read magazines. But then again, you start getting back into that same thing of who owns the newspaper and who owns the
right.
And the example I use it. I'm sorry, Cameron, you wanted to stop, but a little side story.
Let's go. We can go.
During the 2016, actually, I think it was 2012. During the 2012 presidential elections, there was.
I think I know what you're talking about.
There was a Republican lady that was running for the presidency, Michelle Bachmann.
Really?
Michelle Bachmann was a representative from the state of Minnesota. And the phrase I used pertaining to Michelle Bachmann was, when you looked at her, she was not hard on the eyes. Okay. Well, at that same time, 2012, Hillary Clinton was running against Barack Obama and several other people. So Hillary was trying for the presidency in 2012 also.
Right.
So, no, actually not 2012 because...
2016.
2016 and then 2008. Hillary ran in 2008
against McCain.
Against Obama.
Yeah,
and Obama knocked her out in 2008. She then became the Secretary of State for 4 years. So it was 2000.
What a sad life she lives.
Hillary?
Yeah.
Well, let's say that for a future episode.
Okay.
But my point is, it was 2008. Newsweek, and to the people that are listening to this, look up the Newsweek cover of Michelle Bachmann. That they did a cover story on her in 2008. And she's got this look, and she's not, like I said, she is not hard on the eyes.
Right.
But the photo that they used on the cover of Newsweek magazine of Michelle Bachmann for that issue, she has this look like she's staring intently, almost like evil at the camera kind of thing, or just not looking directly into the camera, but just
the most unflattering
look that you could put on the cover of a magazine.
Right.
And like I tell people, do you think that in 2008 when Hillary was running, do you think that they would put a picture of Hillary on the cover with that same look?
No.
And you even ask a hardcore Democrat, and they have to answer no, because it's such an unflattering photo. and so right there, it's like you just look at the cover and it's skewed.
Yeah.
You don't even need to open it up.
Yeah.
So I can't even remember what the statement was, about, the headline about Michelle Bachmann, the anger issue or something like, whatever it was.
That's the same way with like anybody in Trump's cabinet, anybody on Trump's team. They always pick like the most horrible picture. Oh. And then in the what is that? The caption?
Yeah.
Or whatever, like the description of the picture, they'll say so and so is snarling at the I've literally read that before. I've read that in I think it was Rolling Stone actually. I've literally read that. So and so snarls as he, it's like, who uses that fucking wording like
and but that's so right there, that's the problem with America and with the press is bias. Right there, there's bias. So
it's hard to tell what.
You have to. I talk to people at work that I'll say, what do you think about this? And they, well, blah 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 blah, and it's like, well, don't you see the bias there? And these are adults, and their response will be, what bias? It's like, what bias?
What bias?
You don't even see the fact that there's bias here.
Yeah.
So right there, you've got a person, that's going through life with his input being filtered, biased, and he doesn't even realize it. So that's dangerous.
Yeah. I want to wrap up by saying this. From what you've told me and from what I've seen and from talking to people who are older than me and who grew up kind of when you did, political opinion and what side of the fence you were on didn't really matter as much 30 years ago, 40 years ago as it does now, because now it's gotten to the point where if somebody sees that I'm wearing a MAGA hat, or if they even hear that I'm a Republican, they immediately will not even talk to me. They won't want anything to do with me. They won't even speak to me. And they'll already have that like mentality that, I'm as in their words, a racist piece of shit and a white supremacist, a white nationalist, all this garbage, right? And I think, from what I've heard, it didn't used to be that way. Is that correct? It didn't nearly used to be as important to just simply talk to someone. Is that accurate or not? For old, I'm talking 60s, 70s, 80s, was political opinion that important if you met somebody?
And not at all.
Not at all.
Not at all. As the old saying used to be, when there was a political every 4 years when the presidential elections came around, the posters, and you would get the posters, and you would have some debates, and you would have this and that, and after the election's done and the winner is declared, then
that's it.
Then the opposition party said, I support the actions of the new president, and the country got on to the business at hand.
Right.
And unfortunately, and again, I hate to mention the name again, Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
I am a student of American politics, and I've always loved American politics. Now, I might be wrong making this statement, but I'm pretty sure it's an accurate statement.
Go ahead and make it. It's only going out to the entire world. No big deal.
When Hillary Clinton lost the presidential election in 2016, she was, as far as I know, the first candidate in American political history that did not issue a consolation address that night.
Yeah.
She was the first.
Oh, she fought it. She said he was illegally elected and the Russians interfered.
Oh, yeah.
And then when that failed, then it was, the Electoral College needs to go.
Well, that came days after. That came days after. But initially, that the night when it comes down and says this person won and this person lost, the losing party always that night steps up to the microphone and says, "I lost.
Did it.
We fought a good fight."
I remember watching Mitt Romney give his consolation.
We fought a good fight. Congratulations to the winner.
Yeah.
Thank you very much to the people that supported me. And now on to the business at hand.
Yeah.
So I heard that night at that hotel that they were at, the Jacob Javits Center in New York City, that I heard that they were upstairs and the quote describing Hillary's disposition that night was irreconcilably, I can't remember what the quote was, but it was irreconcilably unapproachable with fits of anger or something, quote unquote.
So she was having a nuclear fucking meltdown.
I think it was. I don't know what the stage is beyond nuclear meltdown,
but she was having it.
But
a supernova.
I think that she was at that stage beyond, and all I could think was that night I would not have wanted to trade places with Bill Clinton for $1 billion.
Yeah. He probably took a private jet to Epstein's Island when that started happening. He's like, I need some little girls in my life. He went and got his 16-year-old girl action on at Epstein's Island that night.
Well, we'll address that in a future episode.
All right.
But
to wrap it up,
if I may interject one other little thing that in the last podcast you mentioned, and I thought about this afterwards, but you mentioned where did I grow up? And one of the places that I mentioned was Pellston, Michigan. And I said, it's just a little town up in northern Michigan, and it's no big deal, blah, 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 I think was kind of my context. And actually, I wanted to clarify that. Pellston is more than just a little town up in northern Michigan, and it's no big deal. Pellston is a cool town. It's a great little town. And I felt bad when I said that I didn't elaborate on that. And I wanted to elaborate to the point where I had a conversation with a buddy of mine that I grew up with in Pellston. And name is Stuart Stahl, my best buddy when I went to school up there in Pellston. And when you drive into Pellston, the graduating class is like 50 people. Maybe they're up to like 60 or 70 now. Who knows?
Doubt it.
But but Pellston, 15 miles south of the Mackinac Bridge. The description that I gave to Stuart, talking to him years later, was Pellston is the epitome, was the definition. I think it probably still is to the people that live up there. But it was like a Norman Rockwell painting. It was that. It really was. It was a Norman Rockwell painting, and it come to life because it was Americana all the way, and a little highway goes through the center of town.
Norman fucking Rockwell. Yeah.
I've never heard that middle name.
That's a Lana Del Rey album, but whatever.
Okay.
Continue.
But it was a great town and a great time and a great place, and I just wanted to say that if anybody's ever going up to visit the Mackinac Bridge, there's a little town 15 miles south of there called Pellston, right on the highway.
And we've both been there.
And I love Pellston. So it's more than just a little town in northern Michigan. Awesome. And actually, when you're driving into Pellston, from either way, north or south, there's usually a little sign out there on the highway that says, "Welcome to the Icebox of the Nation." And in the wintertime, Pellston gets real cold up there, sticking up in the middle of Lake Michigan and Lake Huron on the other side. And Pellston's the home of the Emmett County Airport, which is why the temperature is always monitored. And because the temperature is always monitored, the temperature at times gets rather cold. So the icebox of the nation.
I got to go there alone more, because when I went up there by myself with my uncles, I had the most fun I've ever had. I was like, man, I wish he always wasn't here. I'm joking. Anyway, I think that's good for this episode. Thank you for sitting down with me.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you to everyone who is listening. We'll see you next time.